5 minutes each, because I know sometimes our journeys is long and our journeys are still going. How did you guys get to where you are now? I know, I'm starting off.
I can't go.
So who wants to, you know, ladies first.
Yes.
So let's go ahead, V.
I started as an intern at XXL in 1998, and I did any job I needed to do in order to make my way up. That's your 5 minutes right there.
Yep, exactly.
Whatever had to get done, you had to do, you know?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I can piggyback off that too, because I also started as an intern at Complex. Before that, I wrote for the only hip-hop magazine on my college campus, which is Syracuse. And yeah, I was an intern, grinded, freelance for Daytwan and Carl at different points in my career. And then climbed the corporate ladder, I guess, at Complex. Went from intern to editorial assistant to staff writer to senior editorial content producer, which is just a fancy way of saying like staff writer plus like on camera, talking to artists on camera interviews as well, and producing video content. Yeah.
Nice. Go ahead. You're next.
Yeah. Pretty much, I never thought I was going to be a music journalist, quite honestly. I knew I was going to be a journalist, but I always thought I was going to be like a sports journalist. I used to look up to Scoop Jackson coming up.
Oh, Scoop.
EIC. Shout out to Scoop. Y'all never met Scoop?
You never met him? Oh, man.
But you know, I love Scoop Jackson. He was the EIC of Slam Magazine. You know, R.I.P. Stuart Scott, who used to work at ESPN Sports Center. But I still do to this day have a strong affinity for sports, basketball being, the go-to. So I started off as a sports editor in high school, and then when I went to Howard University, a friend of mine was like, yo, I seen that Vibe has an internship available, you should check it out. I've always loved hip hop, but I never knew you could combine, journalism and music. So I took the shot. I think the internship started Monday. I interviewed that Friday, and I was the last intern picked. I was the youngest one. I was 18, amongst like grad students. I sucked the entire internship, but the one thing that I learned was just the power of networking. Through that internship, I was able to meet my man Todd Thomas over at Vibe, working under the tutelage of like a Danielle Smith, Rob Kenner. And, when I left, I was able to write at different hip hop publications, like Hip Hop Game. And then I found my way over to these beautiful people. I've written at Vibe, obviously, XXL. And around 2016, I had found myself in a real tough position where I was kind of considered like the go-to freelancer, but I never really had a home. Like I never had a full-time job. And I had been in the game for like 8-9 years. And, by the grace of God, I was able to get picked up at Billboard as a full-time freelancer. And then I got promoted the year after to hip-hop editor in 2017. And, I've been at Billboard ever since, so I finally was able to find that home.
So Carl, sorry to interrupt you, but how did you get them to take you seriously to offer you a full-time position, since you said that you have hopped around in many different publications? Like, how did you finally get them to be like, okay, we should hire him full-time?
Honest to God,
what made you stand out?
It's that man right there.
Okay, I knew he had something to do with it.
Yeah, we worked in the same building. This is when Daytwan was the EIC of Vibe. I met Daytwan a couple of times prior to me being in that building. And I didn't even know until him and I had a conversation when I was actually in the building. And, there was only one other person that they were considering to hire, but I was already entrenched in the system as a freelancer.
Nice.
And he kind of pushed them to like, yo, I don't think you need to outsource. You got somebody in the system already who's young, hungry, and has this robust knowledge. So thankfully they took on, Dave's advice, and yeah, I was the only person that interviewed for the job.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you advocated for yourself.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I didn't want the position.
Okay.
I didn't think I was ready for it. If I'm being honest, I never saw myself as an editor.
Yeah.
I saw myself as a writer. I think I kind of got stuck in that freelance bag where I was like, I'm not made to edit, I'm just made to write. But, I kind of got thrown into the fire, and I really developed my skills just through years of experience of being in the mix.
Love that. And Vanessa, how did you get them to take you seriously as a woman in this industry?
I mean, I just think you do your job and whatever it requires of your job at the time to get things done, be dependable, relate to the artists, relate to the people around you, relate to the people that you're working with, and hope that people see that you're doing your best and that your best is good enough, I guess,
Yes.
It seems to be the bottom line is, are you in it for the long haul? With this kind of industry, are you in it for the long haul? Are you going to jump off and do something else? That's cool, but I think you have to be invested into, have aspirations of what you want to do next. And I think you see that kind of less and less now is people being aspirational within the career space in what I see. And I think you have to know kind of what you're going after or what you're trying to do so you can check those boxes as you go and have other people look that you're checking them also.
I love that. And Daytwan, how do you keep up with the culture for being in the game for so long? Like, how have you been able to pivot through all these many genres of music and change and everything like that?
Wow, that's a dope question. Before I answer that, though, I have to speak on the three individuals to my left. They're all being extremely humble. I'm extremely humble as well, but they're being extremely humble as far as like Vanessa, the way that she got people to really respect her is her toughness and being the ultimate talent seeker. Like, she knows who's hot. She knows who's dope. And in our space, when you have one, a woman, and then two, a white woman that comes in, there's always the questions of like, oh, they know what they talking about or whatever the case is. She's more than proved that so many times to the point where some people might be like, man, I can't mess with Vanessa. She crazy.
Be that bitch.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But I like, when I was editor-in-chief and she was my number 2, I didn't realize
we go back 25 years.
25 years easy. Like, I remember her first day as an intern type, so to see her as editor-in-chief and all these years later to see how she's been resilient against every kind of, obstacle that's been in her path is been quite crazy to see in the most beautiful way. You know what I mean? And I think as time goes on, you start to value people in a different way, and you see what they have to go through to be successful. And I've seen her whole career, and this is like the first time I've been able to say it in front of people that I truly respect what you've done with everything.
You want me to hug you right now?
What a moment, huh?
No doubt.
No, thank you for that. I
No
sincerely
doubt, I know how
appreciate
tough
that,
it is.
because, to her, your question that she asked you was, you've done everything you can to stay abreast of everything in the game the whole way and be in touch with it. I mean, one of those people who worked their way, not just up and up, but through it when so many people check out of it.
Oh, no question. It's the hardest thing to do is as you get older to care.
Stay interested. Yeah.
It's like, oh, who's young who? Little what? Little who? Sexy what? Sexy what? You know what I mean? And you have to care. You have to, and it's just funny. I'm starting to use like terms that I've seen other people use. Like Biggie used to say, like, you have to treat every opportunity like your first day as an intern. And I remember him saying that in like a BET interview or something like that. And I was just like, yeah, that's what you got to do. Because my first day as an intern, I was ready to do everything. And I interned at Vibe. So my first internship was at Vibe. My only internship was at Vibe, and it was in 96. And y'all know what happened in 96. You got Pac, you got Big 97. So I'm in that whole thing. And it's like Loud Records was right upstairs from us. From Brooklyn all day. Biggie and all of them was down the block from me. I went to school with Junior Mafia. Just like, my steps were ordered in that way for me to do what I'm doing, but I think one of the main things that kind of keeps me within the realm of it, one, I have like an incredible passion for it. Two, I stay in connection with people that are in it even more than I am right now. I'll talk to Carl. Jordan, I was about to hire him. I was like, yo, I need this dude. And he went over the complex. But it's just being tapped in. And I use my resources as far as my nieces, My nephews, my little cousins, my daughters.
And never think it gets dumb. Just think it's something you're not understanding.
Exactly, because I remember having that feeling when they didn't understand Nas, or they didn't understand Redman, or they definitely didn't understand Onyx talking about throw your guns. Like, why are you listening to throw your guns in the air? You know what I mean? But hip hop is beautiful in that way, that if you keep a youthful spirit, you can still be connected to the passion that these new kids have. Even if you don't like it, you can understand what that passion is like to produce what they're doing.
And Jordan, for you, being almost sometimes the youngest in the room, but you know what the culture needs right now and wants right now. So how is it for you being in a room with people who's been in the industry for so long, but you know that ain't hot no more, whatever they're trying to push? How do you advocate for what the culture really wants right now? Like, how do you speak up and stand out?
That's a good question. I think just trusting your taste and trusting the work that you put in to create that taste is really, really important. You're completely right. You know, full transparency, I'm 25 years old, so you know, I am almost every day in the office the youngest person in all of our meetings, deciding, you know, covers and what artists we should, you know, put energy and effort and resources towards. And I think the reason I'm able to have an opinion that's valued is that I be right a lot of the times. I be
That's right, talk your talk.
You feel me? I be, you know, my ears to the streets, and I am still outside on occasion. So it's like I hear what, you know, people my age or people just in general are listening to outside of siloed locations, and seeing what may not touch you when you're listening to it in your headphones on the way to work, but might touch you if you're outside in LES in New York, like on a warm Sunday dusk. You feel me? Darty vibes. Like there's different ways that music is able to touch you, and I think that is important just to kind of understand, and also, like, you know, remove the self-doubt and the imposter syndrome, which is extremely, extremely difficult, something that I still, you know, battle and make sure that I try to overcome, of knowing that you're in these spaces and places for a reason, to put some respect on yourself and put some respect on the work that you put in. Cause like Daytwan and Vanessa already touched on and Carl, like the only reason I'm even in this space right now is cause I cared a lot. I care a lot about this space that we all consume. I feel like music is an interesting space to be in for work, because it's not like finance or, you know, other spaces where you're working in it and then you go home and you don't really want to touch it. It's like everybody, no matter if you're a dentist, a doctor, a lawyer, you all listen to music. You all have a favorite song. You all have a song that you grew up on. So it's something that we all touch, but it's harder to then work in that, you know, and understand and separate your feelings from also then criticism and all of that. So yeah, I think that was like I started to meander there, but yeah, I think that's
you got it, bro.
How I maintain, basically.
Great answer. This is for the entire panel. So when considering what's hot and what's not in music, because everyone has different opinions, standards, everything, how do you guys go into it personally on considering what's hot and what's not? Carl, you've been kind of quiet. So you can start with that answer first.
Yeah.
Well, the question.
No, I think, you know, with where I work, it's tough because, you know, we have the charts.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to fall back and look at the charts to be like, oh, clearly you're not charting, so you're not high.
Yeah.
But I have, you know, made sure to prevent myself from falling into that trap, because reality is there's so many dope artists out there that are cooking, that are killing, that are not charting, and that I still listen to and that I still write about. So it's kind of like a 50-50 split, you know? Like, I know for my team and I, we had created a franchise called Rookie of the Month, where I told my team going into it, sure, we can look into the charts because that's what we do, but I want to take it back to the vibe next. I want to take it back to the source, the unsigned hype, where we're using street buzz, or in this case, looking how they're buzzing on the streets and social media. in conjunction to the music being good, and if they do have chart success, cool. So we've been, implementing different factors to really see if an artist is cooking or not. Because in reality, coming up as an artist, you'll be lucky to hit the charts off the rip.
That is true.
If you're Ice Spice, sure, you might be able to get 4 top 10s, but that's not every artist, So I think we do our due diligence, and like what Jordan was saying, just making sure our ears is tapped into the streets, and just making sure we're giving everybody their just due, whether on the charts or not.
Yeah. And then Vanessa, I know you were part of starting the freshman class. Where you
I was there from the beginning.
You were that's why I said it. I was like, how did you think of that? Like, because that is amazing, and that's still
the shift
going on.
went from old to young. People were more interested in what the young people were doing and being first on an artist than they were on knowing the people who were already established. And I think to go off what Carl was saying first is when you're a journalist, you're not writing for you, you're writing for everybody else.
Yes.
So because of that, you're documenting that's what's going on with everybody else, even if it's a song that you might not be into, an artist you might not be into. It's not about you. Maybe if it's an editorial piece, but for the most part, as a journalist, your job is to document what's going on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, minute-by-minute basis, and that doesn't have to do just with your tastes. So I think you have to be totally aware of it's not your what your opinion is, it's what kind of everybody else is to figure out how you're going to document it. And I think that's what you had to notice with freshmen is that people were making a shift from wanting to be with the older, huge artists and jumping on that bandwagon, and with the internet being able to get over and be on the discovery aspect of sides, play the A&R themselves. And that's what freshmen kind of came from, is people wanting to be I knew them first, or I heard them, or I listened to them when they were at this level. And you just saw the internet break open for people to have the ability to get heard and seen and discovered and celebrated without having to have those chart-topping records that Carl's talking about. And that's what freshmen focused on.
I love that.
The future.
Yes. Do you want to add?
It's funny, like with the freshmen, with us coming up with it, I was always thinking about like, dag, man, like we over here, remember we would be fighting the Source or Vibe to try to get Jay-Z, try to get Wayne. And, we're Double XL. We're more of the street at the time. So it was like, how are we going to combat and bring some newness to the game? And understanding like the blog era was coming on us and all that stuff. So when we rebranded it Freshman, I knew that was going to give so many new artists on the come up a shot to be on the same plane or the same platform as like a Wayne or a Jay. Like I'm making this music, I'm putting it up on SoundCloud, I'm doing all that, and then somebody over at Double XL could be like, hey, come join this group. You know what I mean? Like
crazy.
It also made them aware of each other.
And
so
then
the competition was different.
And here's our class now.
Yeah.
It's just like if you're in the NBA draft coming out of college, these are the top cats right now. And to put your stamp on that, and then for those artists to believe in that brand, all it did was it fostered all this time. Like, how many is it up to now? About
17 or 18.
17, 18 years. Like, that's crazy. Wow. You know what I mean? So just understand that if you care enough to think about the future, you can make something for the future that can be sustainable. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, and it's so funny I say that is because that's how you have a Harvard. Mm-hmm. That's why you have a spot that they say, like, hey, we're going to make an area where people can come for, higher learning, and we're going to have it forever. And it's one of those things I think that we created that could be forever in hip hop.
Yes, agree. It's beautiful. Love it. Mm-hmm. I'm such a fan of the freshman class. What I'm going to do now is open forum. So you guys have the opportunity to ask some of the most talented people in this industry. So who wants to go first? Yeah, go ahead. Mm-hmm. I'll come over
Street
to you.
legend.
Don't worry.
Yeah. His T-shirt is crazy. You got to show that T-shirt, bro. Yeah. You got to show that T-shirt.
So, first of all, it's so dope just to hear y'all speak. I'm a journalism nerd, so this is so
That's
cool.
What's up.
So I'm gonna ask my little journalism question. But when it comes to like the ethics of just writing in general, when I read like older Vibe or older 90s journalism, it's like really good and I enjoy it. But even now, like I'm also like a music journalist. I'll talk to y'all later about that. But I wanted to know, like, in the sense of like, it feels like people want to more hear like the drama and the stuff, and doesn't really care about their ethics going into the work. Or even, also this is another question, but like long form articles, like I seen Complex did one with Ice Spice recently. And it's like, it was dope and it was so connected to the artist and it made me more of a fan of her. But people, since like social media, everyone has a voice and it kind of, you know, people don't want to read those long forms. So I guess like, it was kind of a double question, like in the sense of like, how do y'all feel like ethics is really being practiced now, like in general from back when y'all were doing it? And then also like, when it comes to the long form and really trying to get to know artists through pen and paper, like, do y'all see that as something that's still valued and important?
There's nothing like a great narrative, right? A very well-written narrative. I mean, no matter what genre it's written, where you're reading it, there's nothing like a well-reported great narrative. I think to your point, hip-hop skews on a young direction, you know, the one that's living online, the ones that's spending the money on it, and they're not reading the length, that narrative at the same length or as in-depth of a piece as used to exist. You're also competing with a lot of bloggers that aren't writing at all. They're posting videos, they're stealing your content, they're posting, you know, 1 or 2 sentences, they're posting your articles and putting them in their caption boxes. So you've got to be aware of how you stay in business and how you keep going when you're competing with something that isn't as much journalism as it used to be. As far as journalism integrity, I think the bottom line always will be don't accept money for coverage, don't accept money for anything that has to do with journalism. And that goes to a whole other world where you see people getting paid for coverage. So I think what all of our brands are responsible for doing is making sure we don't cross the line to where the other places are going, to where the other personalities are going, to where the other blogs are going, where you're getting a pay-for-play side of things, or, you know, you're getting, you know, you're striving for dollars and advertising in a certain way that you're willing to risk what you do as a brand, what your legacy is in order to get that. And that's an ongoing fight when you have a music genre that lives so much online in so many different ways. We see ourselves fighting streamers, you know, for access, and it's a total different world. I think another aspect of it, bottom line, is also fact checking, and that sounds layman, dumb, and boring at times, but you need to be a trustworthy source where, you need to be a trustworthy outlet where people know when they go to you or when they see you report something that something's accurate. So a story I have is a couple of years ago or whatever, Fabio Farin was reported that he had been killed, and nobody had verified that story, and every blog ran with it, every outlet, every whatever Instagram or Twitter page ran with the fact that he was dead, and everybody was convinced, but there had been no report from a police department, from his family, from anything. As XXL, and I would assume as all the other brands up here, none of us would report that until we got a verified source that told us that. 1, because then you couldn't trust us if we reported that wrong, and 2, because it's just wrong and we're disrespecting the artist and the culture by doing that. So I think that's something that most important for us to stay true to also is the fact-checking side of it. So you know at the end of the day, what you get from us is coming from an outlet that's close to the artist themselves, or somebody that's coming with some sort of authority, and we can be trusted.
Yep.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here and having us. My name is Tor Woods. I go by World Tour. And as a rapper, as an artist, how important is it to know your audience, and could your audience find you by putting your music out there into the world?
I got that.
Spoke a long time
You did it?
I just spoke.
Nah. I just want to get it one more time. You said how important it is to put your music out there to find your audience, and how can your audience find you?
Yep, that's what he had.
Back in the I'm gonna say back in the day, mad times, so back. But back in the day, it was a little bit easier to say like, hey, do X, Y, and Z. Now, I mean, this could go viral. And that's a way that people will know that you're World Tour, right? That's your name. You see what I'm saying? Like, that's how easy it is now, but it's also hard because now, even if this does go viral, it's like, is he good? What are the steps to find him? The first thing I would do now that you said your name, if we didn't exchange info, I'm going to go to Instagram and try to find World Tour. You know how hard that's probably going to be. You see what I'm saying? So to find you, what are you doing? Are you spelling it different? You know, like how Juice WRLD spelled Juice WRLD different. World Tour may have to be something on the marketing side that you do different.
Get rid of
what I'm
the O,
saying?
get rid of the O.
Right, get rid of the O. Maybe drop the D. Forget about the W. You know what I'm saying?
And then have the
It's
same
crazy.
tag on
Yeah.
all of your accounts. If your Instagram and your Twitter and your YouTube are all
Everything
the same,
uniform.
you're easier to find rather than having a different tag name for every platform, you know?
For real, like it's that bugged out now, and that I don't know, it's spectrumed, you know. But the main thing is the thing that never changes. I saw something where Jeff Bezos was like, he said everyone always asks him what's the future, and he said the question that people should be asking him is what doesn't change, because you're going to always make money with what doesn't change. So the thing that doesn't change in being creative is good shit. If you're good, if you're working on your craft, that comes across. You know what I mean? So the quality never changes no matter what you name yourself. You know what I mean? So I think that's one way that people could kind of not necessarily find you, but start to believe you. Like when V was saying, like, you have to be credible. You know, fact checking is being credible for a journalistic platform. Being good is credible for, I would say, for longevity in music, not just like a flash in the pan. And then, you know, the regular social media onslaught, you know what I mean? And I think the other thing that people forget, and this is for the whole room, if you're a manager, if you're an artist or whatever, your live show should be incredible.
No backtrack.
Agreed.
At any level, you should be working on your live show as well. Recording, being in the booth, getting it out there is cool. Your live show makes the difference. And I could go on record. 21 Savage, dope records. I saw him on Saturday Night Live, and I was like, yo, what's going on? Like, what happened? You know what I'm saying? And I love him. I think he's dope. But at the same time, if your show doesn't do that, then that it doesn't necessarily bode well for you going forward. You can have the hits, but you want people to be knocked over by your live show. So definitely
Well, that's
work on
creating
that.
the experience for them.
Yeah, definitely.
Giving them an experience going to your show will be something they want to go back to.
And you get booked. You get booked.
No backtrack, man.
Yes.
Like I say this about so many young new artists coming out, man. Only a few do it. I think Jack Harlow's one of them, where he's able to rap. He doesn't need his vocals. He'll just have the ad-libs.
Yes.
Like to Daytwan's point, a live show can really make or break, especially if we're seeing you for the first time. You know, and a lot of artists, sadly, they need to live behind those vocals. There's no reason why you don't have your lyrics memorized. That's crazy to me. The only thing we should be hearing in the back is the ad-libs and the hook, and you're good to go.
And one more, and because I know there's probably a few artists in here as well. Speaking on like getting yourself known, I feel like the most important thing is making sure your own community knows you first as well. Like, don't trip about if people in the neighboring state know you. Make sure that your neighbor knows you. You feel me? I feel like especially with a lot of artists coming out now, like they are huge in their city. Like V's is huge in Detroit before he blew up on a national stage. Like I'm from Jersey / live in New York. I've been known about Cash Cobain for years because he's been building in the city. And now you see like he has songs that still maintain his very New York sound that have expanded out of the city. But he still has that sound so that you know who he is. But now you're starting to see him in other places. So also, just make sure that you keep, obviously you want that larger recognition as every artist does, but make sure that you're also building at home because that's what will give you that sustained foundation for longevity.
So,
How's it going? My name is Kendall Sanford, and I'm the CEO of a new music app called Drop Zone. And my question to you is, you guys are looked at as the gateway to fresh finds. My question is, what tools are you using to find these artists that are very well in this room before anyone notices them?
mm-hmm.
Can I go?
Yeah.
Shit, I'll be honest, man. I'm sure all of us, we lean on social media, but I've opened it up so much to where, I'll give an example. My homeboy, his dad called me up like 2 weeks ago, and he was like, yo, I got somebody I want you to hear. I say that because I'm so open-minded to where like, Daytwan, I don't even know if you remember this.
Mm-hmm.
We worked in a Times Square area where artists are still passing out CDs to this day. And Daytwan brought somebody that was downstairs, just passing the CD out. And he's like, yo, let me listen to what you got. To where I'm coming back from lunch, and he's like, yo, Carl, you gotta sit in. So I say that to say, like, there's, for me, no strategy to where I'm so receptive to where I give anybody a chance. Now, I'm not gonna write about you off rip, you know, because there's levels to it. But I've learned, yo, you could find somebody dope in here, you could find somebody dope in the internet. I think it's super important just to make sure your palette is wide and you're receptive, because, you know, talent comes in all sizes, shapes, and forms, to me at least.
True. I was saying this earlier when we were downstairs. As you get older, of course, you start leaning on other people, especially like my daughters. I remember a few years ago, and this is an extreme case, my daughter came to me, my oldest one, and she was like, yo, Dad, you got to do something on A Boogie. And I was like, who?
Yeah.
I had no idea who she was talking about. I was like, A Boogie, like L Boogie, like Fuji's. I think you got it wrong. No, he from the Bronx, High Bridge. I'm telling you, he gonna be it. I'm telling you. And she was still in high school. She done graduated college, obviously now. It's like, and I went to the office. I was asking around. Nobody in the office knew. So I was like, Dad, must be on to something. I started hitting some of the people that I knew in the industry and started finding out more about him. Sure enough, he was like buzzing on SoundCloud and all that stuff. And then I finally had him at the office, and I told him the story about my daughter and everything. He was like, man, the high schools love me. The high schools love me. And it's like, if you get them at that level, it's like, it's crazy, even if you're an older artist. But if it's a younger artist that taps in with that youthful energy, usually that's going to spread like wildfire. And I think now it's even more so, because that was like 8 years ago. So now think how technology and everything is just bubbling everything up to the top. Another way that we find out about artists super early, if you're tapped into the industry, management, people will start to reach out to you. Sometimes the labels, when they only have single deals or they're about to sign somebody, they'll hit you up and be like, hey, I want to get your ears on this. But now, because of, and I could say this freely, like because of my status, my inbox is crazy. I could go in my inbox on people that I don't even follow and get links to things. And I take time every once in a while. And it used to be a time when I really had the time to do it. It was like every Labor Day before I would go to the Parkway in Brooklyn, I would go on Twitter and listen to a bunch of people on Labor Day, just cause I had the time. And if I liked them, I would retweet them, even if I didn't know them or anything like that, random. I'll be like, yo, it's one of those times. And now I'm seeing a lot of my contemporaries like Rob Markman, who we love. And I remember my man Low Key, he was doing stuff like that where they just take time and just look through their social and start sharing stuff with people. And that's how you find them too. You know what I mean? So that's for me.
Hey, how y'all doing? My name's Roberto. I actually do a podcast, and we feature a lot of like artists and creators in the community. So I appreciate you even, adding the fact how big it is to, be big within your local area before trying to garner national attention. And I wanted to go back to the point that Vanessa was kind of making with the streamers, and I was wondering how with people's attention spans just being shorter, and you see these artists opting to go to streamers and podcasts and stuff, how does that kind of threaten the industry that you guys are a part of? And how do you guys feel like you guys have to adapt in order to maintain this sustainability of it?
I feel like my main job is to try to meet people where they're at when it comes to content. So someone had asked a question earlier about where long form written content is. I still write every interview that I record on camera. So basically the approach that I take and continue to try to innovate on is, let's say I sit down with Chance the Rapper and we have like a 45-minute conversation. We're gonna cut that conversation into 2-minute long clips on the most pertinent things that we talked about, or the things that I think are the most important that I want people to see, and we'll put that on Instagram, we'll put that on TikTok, we'll put it on Twitter. But then I will still write the full Q&A of that interview so that you can get the full context of the conversation. And if you still want to read it, you can. So I think when it comes to competing with Twitch streamers and algorithmic accounts on Twitter that just aggregate shit and just they don't have any take, they don't have any opinion, they just take news and they post it up and they get crazy numbers. So that's what you see first on your timeline on release day. I think it's like trying to meet your audience where they're at in as many ways as possible, because now you have so many options of where you can get your music news, where you can get your music opinions. And I think it's important to diversify yourself as much as possible. And I think that's kind of like the evolution of the space now that we see in music. It's like publications are continuously trying to innovate how they are producing content so that you're not just stuck on one way, because it's constantly changing, like every other quarter, basically, it feels like.
That's real.
So guys, we have to wrap it up, unfortunately, but I wanted each of you guys to give them one motivational thing to get them through their career journey or anything in life. It don't even have to be this related, just something, one motivational, each of you guys.
I think there's just this one mantra that I pretty much lean on. It's pretty much like anything is possible if your intentions are pure. Like if you're going into it and you're looking to only get money, the money gonna run from you. If you're going into it to manipulate a situation, that situation is gonna run from you. But if your heart is in it for the pure enjoyment, the pure creativity, maybe even helping someone, that's when, you know, the universal laws of attraction and all those things help you along in that journey on that particular thing. And that can go for something for you personally, or something that goes across on your team, or something for somebody that you don't even know. And I've been blessed in that way for someone to use that kind of law for me. So I always try to give that back as well.
All right, Vanessa.
I live off of two ideas from me that work is take advantage of the position you're in, no matter what it is, the room that you're in, the opportunity that you have at the moment. Don't let that you are frustrated that you didn't do what you could have done when you were in that space, whether it be a position in front of a certain artist, whatever it is. And the other thing is you can't rewind time. So if you're going to sit there and regret what you didn't do in the moment, rather than just learn from it and move on, you know, I think you can get caught up in regret, and there's nothing you could really do with that. You could just take what happened and learn it and apply it moving forward. And I think those two things have probably benefited me the most in my personal situations. There's a lot that hasn't, you know, helped me out, but those two things I kind of probably count on the most as far as that have moved me forward.
Yeah, I think that there's a Nipsey Hussle quote that he basically says, you know, people always ask me, you know, how did I get to this position, X, Y, Z? And they think that there's something, I have a special trait or there's something unique about me, but really it's just that I didn't quit. Like, I went through every emotion, every single emotion. The only thing that separated me from everybody else trying to do the same thing that I was trying to do was that I didn't quit. I think that's something that's really important to remember, is that oftentimes the best resource you have is your time. Like, everyone that's sitting on this panel has 1,001 things to do, I promise you. Like, this space, we cover a lot of stuff, but there's very few people doing it, especially now in terms of limited staff rooms and like just limited people on staff. So just think about how you can be a benefit to somebody in even the most intangible of ways. Like, the way how I even got started in the industry was I was in college. I was doing class, but I had nothing but time to try to help in any way possible. Like, I would call up Carl, like, yo, I know there's a show happening in Atlanta and you may not have any freelancers in Atlanta that can cover it. I can go like tomorrow if you need and cover it. Like, it takes just a little bit of being crazy for sure. just a little bit.
A little bit of crazy helps.
Yeah, but sometimes it's just a little bit of crazy that can get some shit done. Excuse my French. So I think that would be my advice.
Good one.
Nah, you hit it right on the nail. So I was gonna say, you gotta be a little bit crazy, and you know, you can't be scared to dream. You know, I was telling when we were in the waiting room, you know, we were just talking about stories and stuff. You know, for me, I didn't see a paycheck for years, you know, doing journalism. I worked as a porter in the gym, worked as a gym teacher going to school while freelancing for free, you know, but I did it because I loved it. You know, my parents, I was telling them, I have Caribbean parents, you know, and they looked at me crazy for pursuing journalism. You know, they're like, you're not gonna be a doctor, you're not gonna be a lawyer, you just wanna write. And, you know, jokingly, but it was true, it wasn't maybe until last year when my mom was like, you doing all right? You know? But I say that to say, you know, if you really love it, if you're really dedicated, the money's gonna come at some point. You just gotta be a little bit obsessed, a little bit of crazy, and put that 10,000 hours in to really get what you want.
Oh, God.
There you go.
Yes, thank you so much, guys. This was so much fun. I appreciate y'all so much. Thank you. Right, and then I guess the next session will come on, bro. Okay, the next session starts in 10 minutes, so you guys get a break.